Ingrid Solheim awoke to a hush that only a fjord in late September could manage, a silence padded with mist and the faint clink of halyards against wooden masts. From her bedroom window above the village library, she could see the water of Øvrevik Fjord, lying smooth as slate, broken only by the half-built Viking longboat that rested on its launching rails. Every autumn since before Ingrid's grandmother was born, the people of Øvrevik had reenacted the sailing of their mythic ancestor, Eirik the Red-Bearded. Visitors arrived on small ferries, children waved paper axes, and the local brass band gamely tried to play A Hunting We Will Go in minor key. As head librarian and unofficial archivist of all village lore, Ingrid adored the ritual, though she preferred her Viking history on vellum rather than under a drizzle. She buttoned her wool cardigan, promised her geriatric cat Tor a sliver of smoked herring for lunch, and headed downhill to the boat shed, determined to offer last-minute help and perhaps a drop of sense to the more enthusiastic volunteers. Inside the timbered shed, the air was rich with pine tar, linseed oil, and the tang of seawater creeping in on the tides. Half a dozen villagers moved about like purposeful ants. Village councilman Sverre knelt beside an oarlock debating historical accuracy with 17-year-old Rune, who hedged his point by citing a YouTube expert. Blacksmith Mari hammered rivets in a shower of sparks, while Anna from the knitwear shop draped tablet-woven wool across the prow's carved dragon head. Ingrid often teased that Anna's textiles looked far too soft for raiding, but secretly she loved the splash of fjord blue yarn against weathered oak. Outside, the old diesel generator coughed to life, prompting a muttered curse from Egil Ström, the electrician hired to handle the festival's sound system. Usually genial, Egil snapped that the cables had been tangled like lutefisk. Ingrid offered him a thermos of coffee. He managed a tight smile before stalking off with an extension cord. As she followed Egil's path, Ingrid's boot tip clipped something under a rowing bench, a flat black disc no bigger than a crumb-caker tin lid. It was held to the keel beam with a strip of heavy-duty Velcro. At first she assumed it was a wireless speaker. Egil loved hidden gadgets. But a closer look revealed a neat serial number, a blinking green diode, and the brand Arctic Track. Ingrid's reading life had acquainted her with many objects, and this one looked suspiciously like a satellite GPS tag, the kind researchers used to follow whale pods in the Barents Sea. She glanced around, but the villagers were occupied hoisting the mast. Precarious as a fiddler on a roof beam, Ingrid eased the disc loose, slipped it into her coat pocket, and replaced it with an empty spool of twine, close enough in shape to go unnoticed for now. That afternoon, over cardamom buns at Fjellkafeen, Ingrid confided in Astrid Hagen, the cafe owner and reigning gossip laureate of Øvrevik. Astrid listened, pletting dough for the next batch of boller, eyebrows rising inch by inch. Egil's been spending weekends in Tromsø, she whispered. Says he's installing marine radios. But Jørgen the harbour master says no such work is logged. Astrid wiped flour from her hands and nudged a folded fishing gazette toward Ingrid. The previous month's edition carried an article about an uptick in illegal minke whale hunts north of Lofoten, hunts coordinated by shadow vessels that ghosted in and out of fjords, avoiding enforcement by switching transponders. The paper showed a photo of the carcass of a small whale draped on a deck, and Ingrid felt her stomach turn. She thought of the GPS tag now hidden in her coat closet beneath a pile of National Geographic back issues. If someone planned to hide location beacons aboard their picturesque Viking longboat, perhaps it wasn't sightseeing they intended to track. Evening smoothed the fjord into a silver ribbon as villagers lit torches along the quay for the ceremonial launch. Children in felt helmets whooped while Sverre delivered his annual speech in stumbling Old Norse. The longboat, christened Helig Andvik, slid into the water with a dignified splash, its dragon head catching torchlight like molten amber. Ingrid applauded with everyone else, but felt a prickle of unease riding her spine. After the cheers faded, she slipped away to the library, where she logged on to the National Equipment Registry. Arctic Track, she discovered, sold 2 main lines of GPS, one for whale scientists, another, unregulated and cash only, marketed on back-channel forums to expedition fishermen. A quick search pulled up a trio of discussion threads debating how best to conceal tags in historic holes used for tourism. Ingrid closed the laptop, heart hammering. Festival dawn arrived cloaked in a pearly fog that made every cobblestone glisten. Ingrid joined the rowing crew on the quay, ostensibly to distribute oat biscuits, but really to inspect the boat. Where she had swapped in the twine spool, she now found a fresh Arctic Track device fixed firmly in place, as though her earlier removal had never occurred. She noticed 2 men in brand-new oilskins standing apart from the merriment, both sporting binoculars finer than anything needed for a village pageant. When she glanced again, they melted into the mist. The longboat would sail the fjord in full view of hikers, cameras, and local media, an ideal time for someone offshore to take a bearing on the hidden beacons. Ingrid's mind leapt to an awful possibility. The GPS units might transmit during the festival, allowing a mother ship to home in on the fjord after dark, collect whale meat stashed in secret coves, and vanish. Determined to know more before raising alarm, Ingrid enlisted her drone-mad nephew Lars, who was home from university, nursing a heartbreak, and therefore eager for distraction. From the cliffs above Uvrevik, they launched Lars's racing drone, its camera streaming crisp images to his tablet. As the longboat glided beneath them, Ingrid spotted not 1 but 4 identical discs, under the prow, the stern, and 2 amidships. Lars switched the feed to display transmitted data packets. With a few strokes, he decrypted an open channel broadcasting real-time coordinates, no password, just a string of lat-long pings every 60 seconds. And each ping was bounced to 3 other receivers whose identifiers began KH Troll, trawler call signs common in the Russian-Norwegian grey zone. Lars whistled low. "Auntie, that's whale poacher tech. My marine biology mates ranted about it last semester." By sunset, Ingrid sat in the modest office of Constable Rune Hagen, a genial bear of a man, whose policing experience thus far included diffusing a dispute over stolen cloudberries. Rune listened, stroking his moustache, then flipped open the antiquated phone connecting him to regional headquarters in Bergen. Static answered. "Storm took the uplink tower out east," he sighed. "We're on our own till morning." Ingrid leaned over his desk. "Then let's go catch them ourselves." Rune's eyes widened. "We have a 5-meter patrol skiff and a gentlewoman librarian." Ingrid squared her shoulders. "History favors the prepared mind, Rune. I have sandwiches." A sliver of moon hung over the fjord as Rune's skiff puttered from the marina, its outboard a muted murmur. Lars, sworn to secrecy, tracked the beacon signal on his phone from shore and relayed headings via shortwave every 10 minutes. Cold spray soaked Ingrid's boots, but she refused the sou'wester Rune offered. Visibility trumped comfort tonight. They navigated past craggy islets until Lars crackled through. Tag signal accelerating northwest, 300 meters ahead. Rune killed the motor. The night breathed around them. Then, through fog, a darker mass resolved. A steel-hulled trawler riding low, deck lights off, only the faint red glow of instruments in the wheelhouse. Ingrid counted 2 inflatable dinghies tied astern, their gunnels smeared dark, dried blood perhaps. Rune raised his binoculars and exhaled a word Ingrid had only read in Icelandic sagas. They drifted closer, using oars to stay silent. From the trawler's deck came gruff voices in a language neither recognized, the metallic clank of hatches and the electric whine of a winch. Suddenly a splash echoed, the dinghy cast off, heading toward the fjord's narrow inner reaches, straight for Övrevik. Ingrid grasped Rune's sleeve. They're after their tags, maybe planning to retrieve the boat once the crowd is gone. Rune tried the VHF radio to alert the coastal police, but the same storm interference hissed back. He muttered, "We'll need proof." Ingrid did what she often did in the library when the ceiling leaked, improvised. She rummaged in her tote for the original GPS tag she had removed, switched it on, and shoved it beneath the skiff's floorboards. Then she whispered, "Make them think we're the longboat." Rune's eyebrows knit, but comprehension dawned. He throttled up and steered in a wide arc, pretending to return toward Övrevik, but in fact looping behind a granite outcrop. The dinghy, spotting the fresh signal, altered course in pursuit. Rune killed the engine once more. The skiff glided into the rocky notch like a letter into a postbox. 15 meters away, the poacher's dinghy sputtered past, silhouettes outlined against their own weak stern light. One man aimed a handheld receiver at the fjord, baffled when the beacon stopped moving. The other waved toward the trawler, frustration evident in the tilt of his shoulders. Rune took photographs with his phone, zooming in on the dinghy's registration numbers and the rifles stowed along its bench. A second later, the phone chimed, the storm blockage lifted, and service returned. Quickly, Rune forwarded the images and coordinates to the coastal command in Bodø. Response was brisk. A patrol cutter happened to be within 40 kilometers, already tipped off by an NGO about missing whale stockpiles farther north. "Hold position," the message read. "Backup ETA 50 minutes." 50 minutes felt an eternity in the damp hollow, but Ingrid reminded herself that librarianship had trained her for patience. She and Rune spoke in whispers, sharing the sandwiches, brown cheese and lingonberry jam, comfort compressed into wax paper. At one point, a curious seal surfaced, blinking liquid eyes at them before vanishing with a soft plop. Finally, diesel thunder rolled over the water. The Coast Guard cutter. Orkan cut through the mist, floodlights spearing the darkness. Within minutes, uniformed officers had corralled the dinghy and forced the trawler to illuminate its registry. By the time dawn began diluting the sky, 6 poachers were handcuffed on deck beside crates of illicit whale meat packed in dry ice. Sunrise painted the fjord rose gold as Øvrevik's inhabitants gathered for the festival's closing ceremony. Most had slept through the night's drama, assuming the bangs and flares they heard were fireworks tossed by enthusiastic teenagers. Ingrid, having handed Tor his promised sliver of herring and changed into a dry sweater, joined the crowd. The Coast Guard ship anchored visibly offshore, its presence explained away as special guests honouring our maritime heritage. Councilman Sverre looked pleased at the notion. The longboat, now safely cleansed of tracking devices, Lars and Astrid had scoured it before dawn, bobbed innocently at the quay. Children filed aboard for photographs with wooden shields, while parents sipped coffee from thermoses. Egil Strum, however, was conspicuously absent, until 2 uniformed officers approached him outside the sound tent and led him toward a waiting van. Word spread in polite murmurs. Eagle had accepted payment to install the GPS units during his electrical work. Ingrid learned later that his brother's fishing company was bankrupt, and Eagle had rationalized that harvesting a few extra whales might rescue the family business. In court he would argue desperation, but as Astrid said, desperation bought with blood was still blood on one's hands. The village, practical yet kind, began planning a fundraiser for the innocent employees of Eagle's brother, even as they condemned the crime itself. That was Uvrevik, capable of holding 2 truths at once. That afternoon, the brass band struck up a spirited polka as the longboat set forth on its official cruise, this time followed discreetly by the Coast Guard cutter, like a benevolent sea giant. Rune, freshly hailed as a hero, though adamant he'd done little, presented Ingrid with a small oak carving of a dragon head. "Every good ship needs a guardian," he said, and his cheeks pinked under his beard. Ingrid accepted the gift, embarrassed by the attention, yet secretly pleased. She placed it on the library's reference desk beside a jar where patrons slipped kronecoins to keep Tor in sardines, a dragon standing watch over the stories of the world. When evening settled once more over Uvrevik, Ingrid pulled a wool blanket around her shoulders and sat on her balcony. Below, the fjord gleamed under lantern light, devoid of poachers, echoing only the gentle clap of waves against the quay. The air smelled of spruce, cinnamon, and new beginnings. Ingrid opened her battered copy of Heimskringla, knowing she'd read barely a page before sleep claimed her, but that was all right. Mystery, she had learned, was the fjord's natural state, deep and reflective. And as long as there were librarians, fishermen, cafe owners, and the occasional earnest constable willing to guard it, the waters of home would remain, if not forever peaceful, at least forever watched.